But Mexico's been on a roller coaster of a journey since 2024, especially since they've hired Javier Aguirre. So let's go on this run to see where they were at and where they are now. Following the Copa America collapse, they did fire Jaime Jimmy Lozano after crashing out on the group stage, and Vasco Aguirre was hired for a third stint as Mexico coach after leading them to the 2002 and 2010 World Cups. His right-hand man is Rafa Marquez. He's his assistant and announced as his post-2026 World Cup successor. So not only did they win Nations League, beating Canada and Panama on the way to lift that title for the first time, they have now also won Gold Cup, beating the United States to extend that record 10th CONCACAF Gold Cup win. And Aguirre's second as El Tri coach, who raised the point yesterday that it was the only manager, Lahoud, that was great. I thought that was a great nugget. The only manager, talk about longevity, to win the Gold Cup twice with Mexico. Pretty incredible. It begs the question, have Mexico dethroned the U.S. as kings of CONCACAF?
Right now, yes. How could you argue with it? But it is one tournament. It is one in which the United States were missing
tournaments.
A whole lot. Yeah. Then there was the Nations League before that. So the Gold Cup, we weren't talking about that as the United States were winning Nations League after Nations League after Nations League. And again, the last Gold Cup, the U.S. did not have a first-choice group. This Gold Cup, the U.S. did not have a first-choice group. It is not a good spot to be arguing pro the United States after what Mexico just did to them this weekend. And Mexico are rightly, right now, kings of CONCACAF. But this gap is not as large as I think it's been made out to be in the aftermath of this game.
Yeah, it's their first competitive win, when it counts, over the U.S. in 6 years. So kings of CONCACAF is a bit of a hyperbole, and we all know I love a good hyperbole, whether it be for a Canadian or Mexican or U.S. men's national team player. But there is a mentality shift towards that direction right now. There's an identity when it comes to Vasco Aguirre. This is a pragmatic side. They get results. They have leaders, and down their spine, there's a good balance of experience and players for the future. So they're trending in a positive way.
Listen, if you don't want to call it kings of CONCACAF, I'll call it pole position in CONCACAF at the moment. It's such a shame that we don't have World Cup qualifiers as that litmus test, because when the U.S. under Greg Berhalter became kings of CONCACAF, they were beating opposition, or at least Mexico in reality, because against Canada, they struggled in World Cup qualifying. But in that past cycle, they were beating them in Nations League consistently. Even with their B team, they beat Mexico's A team, right, in the Gold Cup. And that's why they were kings of CONCACAF, undefeated against Mexico in World Cup qualifying. Although Canada finished first.
Do you get a trophy for that, or what happens?
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely you don't. And finishing first, finishing first in World Cup qualifying also doesn't crown you king on CONCACAF.
That's what I'm saying.
For Mexico, it's a little bit different here, and I do think there are certain concerns that haven't been cleared because of this Gold Cup win. I do think Vasco Aguirre has a lot of stuff to work on still. From a football, how much football does Mexico have? Up until the semifinal, I had my questions. They played their best, most comprehensive game against the U.S. in the final, and that is worth something. So if that can be the starting off point for Mexico to get to that elusive quinto partido, that fifth game, are they primed to finally complete it and make a run at the World Cup?
I mean, they need to be way better than what we saw, right? They can't have these kind of flash pan moments. You think of the chances that the U.S. men's national team had. Freeman, right before halftime, if that's a higher profile team, if that's a Spain that you get, if that's a France, even if that's a Turkey?
And hang on, if Malagón,
that's a goal.
It hit Malagón in the face. He didn't. Good for him for being in position, but Freeman did everything right there.
He was not in position.
Malagón
found himself.
Fair enough. But my point is that it's not even like what if that was Mbappe or what if. No. Alex Freeman should have scored. He got unlucky that it hit Malagón in the face.
Agiman as well laid on. Ease, and then the VAR call, lack thereof. I mean, so many things need to be fine-tuned for Mexico. For as dominant as they were in terms of the control against a weaker U.S. team, they still need to put that knife in the
sharp,
back.
Right? They need to put teams away. I mean, a concern that we had for the U.S. men's national team, when you're that dominant against the United States, and I actually don't want to use the word dominant, they exercise so much control in the game, because dominance implies that you're pummeling them, and the U.S. was really still in that game despite being the far inferior opponent in that final. So putting teams away, being sharp, cutthroat, having the fangs to just sink it into your prey. I do want to ask our North American. Sorry, soccer does.
No, that was great.
Fangs are good.
Yeah, it gets the primal instinct out of me. We're gonna ask Felipe Cardenas, our North American soccer correspondent for CBS Sports, the same thing. Felipe, do you see this Mexico team making a deep run, deeper than usual, at this World Cup?
Maybe, I think the narrative in Mexico right now isn't that, wow, this is the team. Like, this is the team that's going to make a generational leap and get to that semifinal, get to the quinto partido, get to the fifth game and change their history. I think right now it's just like, okay, like things aren't terrible. We're not rock bottom anymore. And obviously winning Gold Cup, winning Nations League is a big deal in Mexico, especially after what we saw that, what the last year has been like for them. So, they're going to be at home. And we know what Mexico is like at the Azteca when it really matters, And this is going to be a remodeled Estadio Azteca that I think will be really primed for that inaugural match. There's going to be a lot of pride on the line, a lot of nationalism when it comes to this men's national team in Mexico. So they'll have everything to make a run, but still, I think you guys have hit some good points. Like, it's a team that still is a work in progress, just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I just want to make the extra point that, especially come World Cup, there was a specific moment. I think under Juan Carlos Osorio, 2018 World Cup in Russia, there were so many questions around the men's national team. Also, I feel like every press conference that Osorio was at, he was getting more and more and more defiant. And come the World Cup, they actually played really well. They beat Germany, right? The defending champions of the World Cup. And that was pretty impressive. So, I don't know. It feels like something with the players, when you talk about national team pride, come the World Cup, despite certain concerns, they step up.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this in that friendly back in October, that Vasco Aguirre, the first thing, right? What you have Andres Guardado playing a send-off game, and just that sense of tenacity.
Yeah. And Raul Jimenez scoring that free kick and then scoring another goal to show that he's the best striker.
Behind Jonathan David at the time. No, but what else do you guys want to see to get that believability about Mexico that they can be true kings of CONCACAF or make a deep run?
For me, Edson Alvarez has to play like he did in the Gold Cup final. I thought he was easily the best player on the pitch because for everything Raul Jimenez did and the goal was extremely important. Edson Alvarez, out of possession, in defense, in possession, like he was on another level. If he plays like that, they've got a chance. But they need that, and they need Raul Jimenez to be what he is. And Santi Jimenez or Alexis Vega needs to be the running mate for Raul Jimenez.
Listen, they have a couple of pillars in Raul Jimenez and Edson Alvarez that leads this team. But in this Gold Cup, Pipe, this kid, Gilberto Mora, just came out of nowhere. I mean, he's 16 years old.
And he looks 16, right? Actually, he might look a little bit younger. And it's okay if you were like, I've never heard of this kid before. Like, I'm sure that's what a lot of people are thinking. That's fine. He plays for Club Tijuana. It's not like he's playing for Club America or Chivas or Monterrey, under the radar. But I put it out there on social. I was very public about it. To me, he looks like the Mexican version of Xavi Hernandez. Then I saw someone else say Mexican Pedri, and I was like, okay, I like that one too. Obviously, the same sort of profile player. Just one, I think what's most impressive about Gilberto Mora is just his composure on the ball. Yes, you can say, he plays simple, but he also plays very intelligently, and he's pushing the ball forward all the time. He just looks like it's not the first time he's played for the senior men's national team, and certainly in a Gold Cup final, it didn't look like it was too big a stage for him. So, leading up to a World Cup, we're a year away from a World Cup, we might have a 17-year-old starter for the Mexican national team at the Estadio Azteca. That tells you everything about, I think some of the changes that Javier Aguirre has made, certainly in that midfield, bringing Marcel Ruiz as well from Toluca, who had an assist in that Gold Cup final, another different profile midfield. So Aguirre is shaking it up. And you go back to 2018, what you said, Nico. I mean, one of the reasons why there was so much, I think, just negative energy around the Mexican national team was, Osorio, it was not a Mexican national. And now Javier Aguirre is he's taken that out of the equation, and he's not being questioned about some of these decisions
with them in the locker room.
Bring in the younger players. So that matters a lot. I think the fact that Javier Aguirre has not looked out of touch, 66 years old, third stint as a Mexican national team coach, but bringing in young players, that's been a huge plus for the team.
Yes, Felipe, you joked that like he does look like he's 16 or maybe younger. Only when the camera zooms in on him. I think your point about his composure was what I was most impressed by. If you watched that game and kept it at the normal camera angle and no zoom ins, you'd be like, tell me who the 16-year-old is. You wouldn't be able to tell. He was phenomenal, and that composure, the mentality, and just being so calm on the ball, I think was what set him apart.
Yeah, and he took his chances too. He had a couple shots on goal, and they were well taken. You can see the chemistry he has with the senior level players. I mean, again, right now in Mexico, people are saying, "Oh, there's players like this all over the place. They're just falling through the cracks." I don't know. I think that's a debate that they can have. It's a debate, obviously, we've had here in the U.S. as well. I think Gilberto Mora he is the type of player that Mexico does produce a lot of, like that central midfielder, number 10 like player. But I think this is a different level. I think the fact that, like you said, Tom, the fact that you can see him and he is not just a role player, someone that is actually contributing in a positive way in that team, leading this team, being part of a team that goes on a title run. That's the difference here. Now people are like, remember Marcelo Flores? Like, what happened to Diego Lainez? Now we've got Gilberto Mora. He might be the next great one.
Okay, before we go to break, I want a yes or no answer from you boys. Mexico gets to el quinto partido, the fifth game.
No.
9.
Felipe?
I'll say yeah. I'll say yes. And just because, again, I think they're going to have a lot of momentum behind them in Mexico, all 3 games in Mexico to start. And if they advance, and they, as we think they will, they're going to be in Los Angeles. They're going to have the support. It's a 48-team World Cup. I think there's going to be options here for teams to get through and make history. So I'll say yes.